Your boy Jared T123. We're here with Custom Model. Uh Excited for another one of these, man. We keep on trucking around here. Custom Model's got a lot of stuff going on right now. We're just catching up. Look, we got some guitars in the background, man. How you feeling today?
Good, man. I'm good. Got to get caught up with some sleep, maybe a little nap later today, but I'm doing good. I'm staying caught up with everything.
Today might be the tough day for it. It is Valentine's Day. I know she's not letting you off light for that. So
No, she's good. She's pretty chill. It's mostly, I mean, it's super cold, so everybody just kind of hunkered down here right now. It just snowed again last night, so we're like, here's good. We'll just stay here.
yeah, yeah, nothing wrong with being low key. I got it on both sides. I've got the wife and I've got my daughter's 6, so I had to get flowers and candy and all that stuff for both of them. But it is what it is. There are worse problems to have for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
we've got a 10-year-old, so we were up late making poster boards and candy and stuff for him. So I know how that goes as well.
yeah, the whole classroom grind. I know.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, and the whole bag of stuff for class today. I forgot about that. Sheik did
uh,
all that though. I got to give her credit.
yeah, you gotta love that when you can pass that off. We do a little bit of a mutual effort on our side, but yeah, it's the parenting job never turns off. So it's so funny because I've talked to a few people that are like, "Man, I can't wait to get in and have kids," and I'm like, "Enjoy it while you can, bro." Like,
Pump the brakes there.
you have no idea what you're in for. You think you're tired now, just you wait.
And it's
Uh,
amazing, but it is like another job on top of whatever other job you do.
yeah. Oh, 100%. It's well, and I don't know about you, I just have the one and I'm like, "Ugh," and there are people out there with, like, 4 and 5 kids, and I'm like, "I don't know how on earth you manage that," but
No, for sure. That's like our extended family. They all have a bunch of kids, and we're like, just the one's good. One's
it's
good.
fun. Well, look, man, I wanna get into your music, and I wanna talk to you about, everything. So, you had the Sound XYZ debut last week for the song
Yeah,
I'm
it was
Insane.
awesome.
Um, I found the copy that you tied to that very interesting. You kinda called it your introverted anthem, and if you can, elaborate on that for me.
Well, I don't know what it is. Like maybe just getting older, and I mean, like everything that's been going on in the world has been kind of different. Like the last 5 years or so, it's been different the last 5 years than it has in my entire life. And so I feel like I don't know, just the environmental effects of the world have kind of made me change as I get older. And so I've always had a little bit of like anxiety, social anxiety, and introversion, but I've always been able to mask it really well. And as I get older, I feel like I get less good at masking it. And it's like, so this song is kind of like, it's almost from the perspective of me being like knee deep in my introversion, but embracing it as if it was like a positive or a good thing, when I don't think that in any way. Like everything I'm saying in the song is like all the things I'd like to be doing, but where my introversion is saying, "Nah, you're good here. You just stay right here." And so it's kind of just like a tongue in cheek thing, almost like it's glamorizing all those things that I'd be experiencing when it's not glamorous at all. But it's funny because I knew we were going to talk about this, and the day that I did a Twitter space for my sound drop, I was messing with my iRig for the whole space, and Sheik was like hosting it and keeping me on track, but I was like fully focused on this iRig, and I realized I didn't have any of the anxiety or apprehension in that space while talking and just screwing with this thing, and I couldn't get to work, which apparently it's like a hang up with Twitter that
Mhm.
makes it so that doesn't work. But I wanted to be able to like play the music and have it sound good, instead of just through the speaker. But it was funny because all of that stuff that I associate with like my anxiety and my nervousness kind of dissipated, and it gave me perspective. Like today I was like, I'm gonna put myself in that same feeling, like I'm screwing around with the iRig the whole time, and not think about like the panic and whatever else. And like, I'm still doing all the hands things and stuff to make myself feel comfortable, but
Yeah,
I
no.
feel better. Like it's funny how much perspective can kind of, I don't know, heal or at least alleviate some of that stuff. And So recently, I feel like I kind of had a gateway to like feeling differently about those things. So it's good, some progress, you know?
Yeah, no, so I like to hear that, and I think a lot of the time, and I think we're all guilty of it. I'm that too. So like when you're on the edge of something, it's the anticipation of it, right? And then
Oh, for
once you're
sure.
immersed in it, you just kind of go, and you're just like, oh, I actually can do this, and like I don't know, being a parent, like you can relate to that too. I tell that to my kid all the time. She gets so nervous about shit, and I'm like, just do it, baby, you'll be just fine. And then they get in, and they're 100% fine. So uh,
Absolutely.
I think we get in our own heads about some of that. I wanna talk about so, like, in your again, in more of your copy of how you described I'm Like Same, you talked about how this was a little bit more up-tempo than what you normally do.
Big time.
Um,
Yeah.
do you think that you're going to kinda live in that realm a little bit, or is this kind of a one-off type of thing?
Um, I have such a hard time bridging all of my influences and like interests in that way that it felt very experimental, but also kind of freeing in a way. Um, I guess this was like I feel like the feeling of this song to me was something I've been trying to get out of myself for a while. So I'm probably gonna go a little bit more to what I'm used to with some of this upcoming stuff. I have some stuff that are works in progress that I'm gonna be working on that aren't nearly that fast. So that's why I'll probably steer away from that speed for a minute. But like one thing that most people won't hear in it is that a huge influence of a lot of this stuff is disco punk, which has like kind of a fast, upbeat, like rock and roll feel to it. And so while I listen to it, although I know it's 140 BPMs and super fast for anything I've ever done, like it still sounds kind of like that just disco pump rocking driving feeling to me. Um, I don't know if it's perceived that way by anyone else, but that's like what I hear. I'm hearing like Romantic Rights by Death from Above and stuff like that, and like old influences of mine coming through and but doing it in my weird, quirky, custom model electronic way?
Yeah, I love it. It feels real dancey to me, and so, like, when I was putting the little promo together, that's why I had, like, those little silly GIF dances.
That promo was so sick. I was like, "Oh my god, that's so good." It's like just the simplicity, but the vibe goes so well with the material, and I was just like, "I gotta get back to producing, like, fun promos like that." So I was like I was so hyped on that, and I was wondering I was gonna ask you who made it, so it was
Yeah,
super cool.
I do all those, and it happened to be, like, I don't know, those were the first 2 I thought of for whatever reason, and they actually were on beat. I was like, "Oh, perfect." Like, I'm running with these.
It was perfect. I was like, "Ah, this is amazing. I need this." I went back and watched it a couple times because it was put together really well.
Um, so I wanted to ask how the reception's been, but just before we get to that, so you said this is 140 BPM. What's more, a more standard or I guess, like, a range of a typical BPM for you?
That's what's funny is I still feel like I say that I have these influences and stuff, and my BPMs, I swear, never fall where any of those influences would be because I feel like most of my tracks end up somewhere between like 114 and 124. And it's always just like just this feeling for me. And I'll even start a track somewhere just based on where the original idea is. And then if it doesn't feel right, I'll like pull it down until, like I'll swing my beats in different directions with the tempo until it like feels right. And for some reason, I don't know if it's just my physiological rhythms or whatever, but they always just kind of like that range. But I'm not opposed to 92, 100, 105, the 80s. Like I kind of go all over. It just
Mm.
depends on the feel of the song. But I'll make a whole arrangement sometimes at 1 BPM, and by the time I'm ready to do my first bounce, I'm like, let's see what this sounds like 35 BPM slower. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's a jam. This is it now. And it's like it's funny to put months of work into something to only have it, in 5 minutes of a decision to have the presence of it completely change.
Well, you know what's
But I'm
interesting
definitely
too.
oh, sorry, man. Go ahead.
No, no, I was just gonna say to you, so, like, I think that there's this kind of thing where you keep seeing these in a lot of songs where there's these switch ups at a certain point in the song, whether that's 3 quarters or halfway through, whatever it may be, where all of a sudden you might get something that's like 125 to 140, then down to 90 or vice versa. And so, like, I think that there's a lot of people playing with that, but also you mentioned that you might be physiologically, like, inclined to, like, the 114 to 124, and I've recently like started doing a deep dive on like all these playlists I've made, and I found that my kind of sweet spot is like 90 to 100. So it's really interesting. I think there people do have an inclination towards certain things, but I'm also super interested in like, do you think maybe that has evolved over time? Like you've gone to that, or like is that just kind of like the forever sweet spot?
No, I think for me, when I first started like doing audio engineering and stuff, it was such like kind of figuring it out as I go. And when I would open up Logic Pro to like go and record something, its default was 120. And so I think before I really educated myself, I was just like, this is just where stuff sits and this is normal. And so I think for a long time I produced right around there. And even before I started using Logic, back when I was on drum machines, my first machine that I produced my whole arrangements on was the MC303, the Roland, the old like little mini groove box.
Yeah.
And its default, they're all 120, and so I think until I kind of realized it's not stuck there and you can play with it, I
Yeah.
just made stuff right on that same tempo forever. And so it started to kind of speak to me a bit. And so I think I kind of got used to it. And then also listening to a lot of punk rock and disco punk and stuff, a little faster stuff, it kind of just sat in there. But I'm not unlike you with the 92 to 100. There's something in that realm that does something to me physiologically as well. Like sometimes I just need to make or listen to something in that range because it makes me feel a particular way. And
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just kind of always guided by that feel, whether I'm listening or creating something. And it kind of depends on where you're at, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I think there's a mood to it too. So speaking of, how has with this and it being a little bit atypical for you, what has been the reception like with family and friends with this record?
I honestly don't share it with any of them. It's honestly like I've just only done it through Web3 mostly, like, and like it's the entire reception's been exclusive to Web3. I think I emailed it to my parents, but it's probably like down at the bottom of the email, so they'll take 6 months to see it unless I mention it to them again. But I mean, even in Web3, the reception's been awesome. People have loved it and liked it. It hasn't translated to editions flying off the shelf or anything, but it's been cool to hear how it's like resonated with people because I think it's a little different for them as well. Because I feel the communities that I am in Web3 are a lot more hip hop focused, and so I think it's getting played alongside all these amazing like R&B and hip hop songs, and people are like, because it's completely contrasting. And so it's been fun to kind of like be able to introduce. I mean, maybe not introduce people to it, but like whenever we're in spaces and it gets played, like the contrast, it's kind of cool to see the reaction, and people have been really complimentary.
By the way, if you're looking to, I wanted to mention this when you're looking to play in spaces. So I actually use this thing called a Manocaster Lite.
Yeah, I was just looking that up the other day. Sheik was telling me about it. Looks cool. It's like that little
Oh,
console, right?
yeah, it's like a little like soundboard, and
Yeah,
like
that's awesome.
there's like 8 like regular sound effects, room for 4. You can auto tune. Obviously, you can control pitch and do all these different effects on this. But like it was both Iman, and so like I started doing a bunch of spaces
Yeah, exactly.
roughly a year ago, and both Iman and Black Dave had told me like, "Yo, use that." And I think when you look on Amazon, the cheapest it's been is like 110. So it's not cheap, but it's also like depending on how much you're doing it, like you can get your worth out of it for sure.
I paid more for that iRig and it's not working.
Yeah, well,
So
the
that
Twitter
thing actually works with Twitter Spaces too?
Yeah, 100%. Well, and that's what I'm talking through right now. So, like, I've used the mic here, but I've got it hooked up to that right now, and so, like, if
Because
I hit
it's like
this, like,
with the
watch
iRig, Twitter recaptures like my phone's audio card as soon as I like hit speak, and so I don't know how to bypass that. But I guess with the Monocaster, it doesn't do that once you hit speaking section.
No,
I
and
might
it's
have to get that instead.
as far as I know, it's about as good as you can get on Twitter Spaces, right? They have some weird sort of sound compression thing that they do with some of these devices, but yeah,
For
this
sure.
one's about as good as it gets. So,
It sounds great with your mic.
yeah, yeah, it makes me sound really good. So, funny story for you, RMS, I had him on, like, a few weeks back, maybe, like, 4 or 5 weeks back, and I accidentally had hit the auto tune. So I started the interview with him, and it's like
You're all truncated.
and he's like, "Dude, I don't know if you meant to, but you're on auto tune." And I was like, "Oh shit." Uh,
It'd be great if he sampled you and then turned it into a song, like, right in that moment.
funny stuff. Funny stuff. So I gotta ask, where does the Web3, like, where were you introduced to Web3, and how did that come to be, and what's your general kind of like perception on it right now?
I man, I wish I could remember how I originally got introduced to it. I know we intersected with our IRL friend Roller at one point, and she was kind of in it, and I knew we had become aware of it before we started linking with her in there as well, but she kind of uh, let me backtrack a little bit, sorry. I had kinda got into it from something I think I must have read something about it, and then I saw the platform Cargo had a way where, I wasn't really well versed on wallets and stuff, and Cargo was like, "You can mint your first NFT with a credit card." So I was like, "Cool, I'm gonna get into this." And so I made this audio visual piece. It was called like HGV Vast Abyss because the song was Vast Abyss, and I made this like underwater geometric shapes thing, 3D geometric shapes thing, and I put it up on there, and I didn't really expect a lot from it. I just wanted to kind of like get in on it and be early, and I was, and it was cool. And it didn't sell or anything, but it felt cool to be a part of it. But then, like just a couple months after that, Cargo sends me an email, and they're like, "Hey, we sold our platform, and the people who bought it don't want our platform." So they like sunset the whole thing. And this was so early that I didn't have any way to like get in touch with a dev or find a way to get my contract burned or removed from the platform. So it just went down with the ship. And
Mm,
it was really defeating because I'd put a lot of thought and effort into the material, and for it to just kind of be locked in there, I don't know, it sucked. But then I think when we kind of intersected with Roller in Web3, and she kind of brought us into a community she was involved in. It gave me a completely different perspective where it wasn't just like trying to set up an Etsy shop in the metaverse. It had like this element of interaction and like community that felt good. And I didn't even feel like I needed to mint anything for a while. It was cool just kind of to learn and be present with what other people were doing. And I was seeing these artists who were blowing my mind. Like I know this is I have a lot of friends who interact with you that are kind of like in a different corner of Web3 than that whole corner was. Um, but that was like with my friends Amos and Illich Peters and JT List, like crazy talented artists. And I was watching what they were putting out, and well, I think for a while it made me a little apprehensive to dip my toes back into it. But they were all super encouraging, and so I started posting like old photos, and then I started doing more 3D work and posting that. And so that was kind of, I think, my way to feel comfortable getting back into Web3 and creating and minting my own NFTs before I started putting my music up there. Because I think my first music NFT was just in December, and I did Split on Zora Create. My song Split, sorry, like like
yeah.
everybody just automatically knows what that is. So yeah, I released a song called Split on Zora, and that was my first music NFT. But I'd done a few drops on Foundation, and then I've got another 3D project that I airdropped a buddy of mine on OpenSea, but I haven't released any of that yet, so nobody knows about that one. But it's like this little avocado 3D avocado character I've made named Avi that I'm gonna release him and all of his friends that I've made in a little while. But I'm just kind of focusing on the music right now.
So I saw that,
Sorry,
and
sidetracked.
no, I wanted to ask you about what you've been creating. So I saw some of the visual creations with your avocado one. I don't know if you've ever stumbled across somebody. He goes by Rizzle. His tag is at NFT Land, but he makes avocado things in Monoverse, and he puts them all over. Like he runs around as a little half avocado in Monoverse all the time. So I'll have
That's
to.
awesome.
But the one I'm super curious about, you have one that is centered around Draymond Green and Rudy Gobert,
Yes, I just looked at that this morning and I was like, I wonder if he's ever seen that.
and
I
I'm a
hadn't
big
looked at it
basketball
till
fan, so
today,
I got to
but
ask about it.
so I'm a huge Utah Jazz fan. I haven't been as much since they blew up my team. Like
Yeah,
it's been hard to
rebuild.
watch this year because Donovan Mitchell was like the greatest thing that ever happened to my existence as a basketball fan. And I loved Rudy and that the whole team, and now we're down to like Jordan Clarkson and Rudy Gay and Udoka Azubuike are the last three people from that whole team. They even just shipped Mike Conley off. I won't get too much into it because you and I could probably talk about that, but maybe people listening wouldn't be as into it. But so this whole thing is Draymond Green and Rudy Gobert had this hilarious beef, and it was more Draymond just hating on Rudy Gobert all the time. Uh, and it never ended. And then even when Draymond wasn't playing and he was doing like analysis, he would find some way to bring up Rudy Gobert and how much he disliked him. And so I made this 3D room. I saw people making, like these little 3/4 rooms. And I was like, that's a fun idea. I should do one that's like inside the mind of Draymond Green. And it's like this completely decked out Rudy Gobert room inside Draymond's head. And it's got like the neon light up in the corner that says Dre's place. And it's funny. It's just got Rudy Gobert memorabilia all over the room. And
That's really funny. I
that
love
was
it.
my first like 3D creation that I minted.
So do you play
And
basketball?
I do when I'm not chronically injured, but I like to skateboard and I'm old, so I'm always breaking myself off, and so it makes it harder to do easier things like shoot hoops. But I still go out with my kid. There's like a park close by here, and we like to go shoot hoops and kick a soccer ball and stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah. So Cam and I recently touched base on this, and like I threw something out on Twitter. It was like, "Yo, who hoops in Web3?" And there was like a really good response. So one of these times, if we're all collectively at one of these conferences or something like that, I think that we all need to make it happen.
No, I would totally be down to hoop. I'm a great point guard, good facilitator.
Also, real quick, funny Utah Jazz story for you. So I grew up in Denver, and it was like preseason NBA. I was at for anybody familiar with Denver, the strip downtown called 16th Street Mall. I was walking up and down 16th Street Mall with one of my good buddies, and we went into like one of the food courts somewhere and happened to see all these giant dudes wearing these purple hoodies. And we were like, is that the Utah Jazz? And it was when Stockton and Malone were still there.
Whoa, that's
And
awesome.
so we followed him down. It was attached to one of the little swanky hotels downtown Denver and happened to run into Karl Malone. So I got Karl Malone's autograph at my parents' house back in Denver on a napkin.
That's
Um,
awesome.
so yeah, that was my random encounter with the Utah Jazz. And Karl Malone, I think it was like 14 or 15 at the time. So like, like I was like fairly tall, like I was like 6 foot tall at the time. Um, Karl Malone is a monster. Just for anybody that's, like, never seen him, like, he's absolutely massive, like, I go to hand him the things, and his hands just engulfed mine, and, like but, yeah, random Utah Jazz story for
But
you.
he's not just vertically, he's like huge. Yeah,
Gigantic.
for sure. That's awesome. That must have been back in the like Abdul Rauf days and stuff of the Nuggets, right?
Uh, it was, I'm trying to
That's
remember.
way back there.
It must have been it was maybe, like, 2000.
Oh, yeah.
So
So just kind of on the tail end before he wanted to become a Laker for a hot
yeah.
minute.
So it was, like, pre-Carmelo, it was, like, Antonio McDyess-ish kinda days.
Oh wow, yeah, yeah. Pre AI and Mello, those were the days for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, back when the Nuggets were real bad.
Well, not with AI and Mello.
No, 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 McDyess
Just
days.
before that, yeah, for
So,
sure.
but we've got I have a couple serious questions for you. Um, Unknowingly, I've waddled into this space where we've got Sheik and Sarah Phillips talking about
Oh
hot
Lord.
OJ and pineapple pizza, and I actually suggested that we should do a spouse prepared, like, blind taste test on live stream. And my wife was, like, really happy about that, so, like, I'm really worried
Mine
about
was too, actually.
yeah,
I'm wondering if she's gonna come creeping out of the corner with a steaming glass of OJ for me.
yeah, so what's the, what can you give us on Sheik? What do is there one, like, crazy food thing that Sheik's got out there?
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of them. I'm just trying to think of what would be the marquee item.
She seems to be all for pineapple pizza, so I'm pretty sure it's gotta be pretty crazy.
Which I would've like, if someone asked me that, I would've been like, "Pff, no." Like, I didn't even she knows. She knows, man. She's here, she knows. Uh, I don't think I would've guessed if someone asked me if that's what she was into. I don't think I could've, like, with confidence been like, "Oh, yeah, order that up, she'll eat it all." Like, I know my kid's into it. I just recently found that out, like, a week ago, and I think that's how she felt. She was like, "Oh, I got somebody on my side. I can reveal my love for pineapple pizza now." And I ate that as a kid too, and I think I liked the sweet and the savory,
Mm.
but for some reason, that does not sound appetizing to me at all now, like but I remember as a kid, I would eat it, but now I'm like, "Nah."
So I'm all for pineapples on their own. Pineapple on pizza,
Absolutely. I love
yeah,
pineapple,
yeah, no, not on pizza
but
though. Like, it's something especially, like, with a tomato sauce, like, gross. Like, no, it doesn't
it
go.
reminds me of, like, think of Thanksgiving and you, like, put a bunch of different things on your plate, and then, like, certain things leach over into other things, but not necessarily in a way you want them to. But
Yeah,
that's, like, intentionally doing it. I'm gonna put things that are gonna leach into my food that I don't want them to on there intentionally. Like, I don't get it anymore, I guess. I'm
no, yeah,
old.
so we might be in for it, my friend. You and I might be in trouble, and I apologize for teeing that up. Um, I volunteered us for that, and, yeah, it's gonna be terrible, but
Well, I at least I'll only have to try it with pineapple. It won't have, like, the ham on I haven't been doing meat for a few years, so I know I won't have to try both at the same
mm.
time. But that might almost be worse without, like, the savory to offset it.
Look, and I'm also worried what they can come up with. Like, if pineapple pizza is the worst they come up with, you might be okay. Like, they might come up with some weird shit, like, the internet's got some funky stuff out there.
For sure, they're gonna go get expanded ideas.
Um, one of the questions I always like to ask people, especially, music-related folks, is when you're a kid, right? Like, the people that you're around, like, they listen to music, and obviously you're influenced by musical taste by whether it's siblings or caretakers or parents or cousins, whoever it may be. And usually somebody can point to at least either one song or one album that they know in and out because it was played as their youth. What is that for you?
I love this question because I've never been able to express this before, but this is gonna be a funny answer, I think, and it's probably Ice Cube's The Predator.
Ice Cube? I like it.
Because I was really young at the time, but my brother was, like, a teenager, and this was at the height of NWA and Big Daddy Kane and the Prince of Darkness and stuff, and my brother was like I don't know how he even got into this stuff, but I remember stealing his CDs and tapes and stuff, and when I got my hands on The Predator, I listened to it nonstop, and I still know all of those songs. I show them to my kid, like, there's just something about that I don't know. It's still I still love all of those songs, and that whole album is crazy to me, and if I have a go-to one, that's probably the oldest one that, from start to finish, I would listen to and, like, memorize everything.
You still know it, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and then, it was, obviously, like, following that would be, like, as I got older, it was, like, Doggy Style, Snoop Dogg's original LP, and The Chronic, and I remember oh, man, even before, I remember I had the Trespass movie soundtrack on cassette tape, and it was, like, all these, like, Body Count, Ice-T, Ice Cube songs and stuff. I was just, like, 11, 12 years old, just listening to this stuff as quiet in my room,
Oh,
worried, like, with my ear up to the speaker so I wouldn't get busted by my parents, but, yeah, I was listening to all that stuff, it was awesome, and it definitely drove my love for, like, rap and hip hop for a long time.
I got in a lot of trouble for that, so I remember my first tape that I had ever saved up, like, I'd saved up, like, allowance money. We'd gone to, like, the music store, and I bought my first tape, and it was, one of the old Coolio tapes. And I had only ever
Fantastic Voyage, I remember that.
dude, I'd only ever heard it on the radio, so I was like, "Oh, yeah, this is great." And my dad's like, "Do you wanna play it on the in the car?" And I was like, "Yes, I do," but it wasn't edited, and I got in so much trouble. My
Oh
dad's
my
like, "What
gosh.
are you listening to?" And I was like, "I didn't know. I'd only ever heard it on the radio."
I've never heard the original. Thanks for playing it for me, Dad.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't get that tape back, I don't think, for a while, but, yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But, look, man, I won't hold you too much longer. I appreciate you coming on, sharing about the song, sharing about some good stuff. I very much enjoyed this conversation. I wanna leave the floor with you. Tell everyone where they can find you. Tell everyone, I'll take this part right here. Everybody, if you have not heard the song, go to sound.xyz, type in custom model. You can hear the song. I'm like, same. It is available to pick up. But I want to leave you with anywhere that anybody can find you, any dates we need to look forward to, or anything that you want to leave us with.
Yeah, you can definitely find me on Twitter. That's probably where I'm the most active. My DMs are not open, but check my requests every once in a while, and I normally find them pretty quickly. I've got my website, custommodel.xyz. It's pretty simple, but it's got a contact form if anybody wanted to reach out there. Um, I have Instagram. I am not good at checking it. I'm a great TikTok lurker. You can find me on there, custom model music. Um, Other than that, I'm just going to be working on new tunes and working on some new drops. The next one I got coming up is a fun song I've done with my 10-year-old called Bazooka Bubblegum, and it's a fun one. There's some people who got to hear it. Art Basel from Chic, she did like a ride share with a bunch of Web3 legends, and they got to hear it, and they were all hyped. So now I've got some pressure to put that one out. So I'm gonna finish that one with my 10-year-old, and I got a bunch of other tracks in the pipeline, and I'll be doing the 3D art as well pretty soon. Start trickling that out a little bit.
That's awesome, man. I love to hear that you're doing a collab with your kid. Like that's really cool. Yeah.
He's just the coolest kid, and it's fun to get him involved. You know, even on the artwork for I Light Same, it has like the "Hello, my name is" name tags for the artwork, and a couple of them he wrote for me. So it's fun to get him involved in that too.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, look, keep us posted with it. Happy to support. Would love for you guys to post any content that you've got on Huddle In. Anybody listening now or after the fact, check out Huddle In, HUDDLN. I know it's another platform, but you can do a lot of cool things with it. You can mint NFTs for free, any of your social content on Instagram or TikTok or on your camera roll. Love to have you guys. And we're gonna have this on DSPs after the fact, so feel free to share this out, get people to follow Custom Model, check out the music, retweets count even if you can't collect. Sir, appreciate you again, and we'll follow up at some point in the near future, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate you having me. It's been awesome.
Thank you.